The information in this video is for educational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have seen in this presentation. You see it on your brush. You see it in the shower drain. You find it on your pillowcase in the morning. And each time there's that little knot in your stomach, that quiet panic that asks the same question. Is my hair thinning? For millions of Americans, that fear is a daily reality. So what do? We head to the pharmacy, we scroll online, and we're met with a sea of brightly colored bottles, all promising a solution. And on almost every single one of them, you'll find one magic word: biotin. It's hailed as the ultimate hair, skin, and nails vitamin. We're told to take it for stronger, thicker, faster-growing hair. But what if I told you that for the vast majority of people buying it, taking a biotin supplement for hair growth is like trying to charge your dead phone by screaming at it? It feels like you're doing something, but you're completely missing the real problem. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the multi-billion-dollar hair supplement industry. We're not just going to ask if biotin works. We're going to go deeper. You are going to understand on a simple biological level how it's supposed to work, who it's actually for, and the number one scientific reason why it might be doing absolutely nothing for you. By the end of this video, you will be able to walk into any store, look at that wall of supplements, and have the clarity to know exactly what your body needs, potentially saving you hundreds of dollars and a whole lot of frustration. We're going to replace marketing hype with scientific truth so you can make the right decision for your hair. To get there, we first have to forget everything we think we know about biotin and start with a more fundamental question. What is hair? It's not a living thing, not in the way your skin is. A strand of hair is actually a complex, tightly packed structure made almost entirely of a single incredible substance, a protein called keratin. Think of keratin as the superhero building material of your body. It's the stuff that makes your fingernails hard, your skin resilient, and your hair strong. When your body wants to build a new strand of hair, it's not thinking about biotin, it's thinking about keratin. It needs to manufacture this super strong protein strand by strand inside a tiny factory in your scalp called a hair follicle. So, if hair is made of keratin, where does biotin fit into this picture? This is where the big misunderstanding happens. People see biotin for hair on a label and assume biotin is a direct building block of hair. That swallowing a pill somehow sends magical hair-growing particles straight to your scalp. That's not how it works at all. The best way to understand this is with an analogy. Imagine your hair follicle is a high-tech car factory. The finished car rolling off the assembly line? That's a single strand of your hair. And what is that car made of? Steel, glass, rubber, plastic. In our body's factory, the raw materials aren't steel and glass. They're amino acids, the tiny components that link together to build any protein, including our superstar protein, keratin. You get these amino acids from the protein you eat: chicken, fish, beans, tofu. So you have the factory, your follicle. You have the raw materials, the amino acids from your diet. Now, you need workers in the factory to take those raw materials and assemble them into a finished car, or in this case, a strand of hair. This is where biotin enters the story. Biotin, also known as vitamin B7, is not the raw material. It's not the steel or the glass. Biotin is a specialized factory worker. It's a coenzyme. That's just a fancy word for a helper molecule. Its job is to help turn on the specific machines on the assembly line that process and assemble the raw materials. It doesn't become part of the final product, but without it, the assembly line grinds to a halt. Now, here is the crucial piece of information that changes everything. What happens if you already have enough factory workers? Let's say your car factory is designed to run perfectly with 100 workers. You have all 100 on the floor working efficiently. You have a steady supply of steel and rubber coming in. The cars are being produced at a normal, healthy rate. Now, what happens if you suddenly hire 5,000 more workers and tell them all to clock in? Do the cars start flying off the assembly line 100 times faster? Of course not. It would be chaos. The new workers would just be standing around, getting in the way, with nothing to do because the factory is already operating at its full intended capacity. The amount of steel and rubber coming in hasn't changed. The speed of the machinery hasn't changed. You haven't addressed the actual bottleneck. You've just flooded the factory with useless extra labor. This is precisely what happens when most people take high-dose biotin supplements. They are flooding their body's factory with thousands of extra workers it simply doesn't need. The vast majority of people in the United States are not deficient in biotin. It's found in tons of common foods: eggs, salmon, avocados, nuts, seeds, even sweet potatoes. A true, clinical biotin deficiency is incredibly rare. Your body is already getting all the factory workers it needs from a reasonably balanced diet to run the keratin assembly line smoothly. So when you take that 10,000 microgram pill, your body looks at all this extra biotin, says, "Thanks, but we're fully staffed," and then you simply excrete the excess out. You're not building more hair. You're just creating expensive urine. The supplement isn't working not because biotin is a scam, but because you're trying to solve a problem you don't have. You're sending thousands of extra workers to a factory that isn't short-staffed. So what is biotin's real job? Let's get a little more specific than just a factory worker. Biotin's primary role in the body is to activate a group of enzymes called carboxylases. Think of an enzyme as a specific machine on our factory's assembly line, and biotin is the unique key that turns that machine on. These machines are critical for metabolism, the process of converting food into energy and building blocks. Specifically, biotin helps your body process fats, carbohydrates, and most importantly for our story, the amino acids we talked about. It helps break them down and put them together in the right way. So, biotin is essential for producing keratin, but in a supporting role. It helps ensure the raw materials, the amino acids, are properly prepared for assembly. It's not the bricks, and it's not the bricklayer. It's the person who makes sure the cement mixer is turned on so the bricklayer has what he needs to do his job. So we've established biotin's real job. It's not a magic hair-growing molecule. It's a critical, but behind-the-scenes, helper for your body's protein production system. This leads us to the billion-dollar question, the one that truly matters for you and your wallet. Are you actually short-staffed? Is your body's hair factory one of the rare cases that is actually missing this key worker? Because if it is, then adding more biotin could, in theory, be life-changing. But if it isn't, you're pouring money down the drain. The answer to that question is far more surprising than you might think. And it's what separates the tiny percentage of people who see incredible results from biotin from the millions who are just hoping for a miracle in a bottle. Understanding who truly needs it is the first step to figuring out what will actually work for you. So let's pull back the curtain on this B vitamin and see what it's actually doing inside your body. To understand biotin's true role, I want you to imagine a massive, complex construction site. This construction site is your body, the project, building and maintaining everything, but for our purposes, let's focus on one specific structure: a long, beautiful strand of hair. The building materials for this hair strand are proteins, primarily one called keratin. Think of keratin as the bricks and mortar. Now, to assemble these materials, you need a team of highly specialized construction workers. In your body, these workers are called enzymes. They are the ones who take the raw materials, the amino acids, and piece them together in the exact right sequence to build a strong, healthy hair strand. So where does biotin fit into this picture? Biotin is not the brick. It's not the mortar. It's not even the construction worker. Biotin is something far more specific. It's like the unique, specially coded keycard that a very specific group of workers needs to access their tools and get to work. Without this keycard, these essential workers are just standing around, unable to do their job. The whole construction process grinds to a halt. The raw materials, the bricks and mortar, might be piled up and ready to go, but without the workers being activated, nothing gets built. This is what happens in a true biotin deficiency. The body has the building blocks for hair, but the enzymatic machinery to assemble them is offline. Now, here's the multi-million-dollar question, the one that supplement companies rely on you not asking. What happens if every single one of those specialized workers already has their keycard? What happens if you airdrop 100,000 extra keycards onto the construction site? The answer is nothing. The workers who need a keycard already have one. They're already working at full capacity. The extra keycards just lie on the ground unused. The construction project doesn't speed up. You can't build the hair strand twice as fast just because you have a surplus of keys. The pace is determined by the number of workers and the supply of materials, not by an excess of activators. This simple analogy is the absolute core of understanding biotin. Supplementing with high doses of biotin is like flooding that construction site with extra keycards. For the person who was missing them, the person with a genuine deficiency, giving them the keycard is a game changer. The workers get activated, construction resumes, and you see dramatic, incredible results. The hair starts growing again, the skin clears up. It looks like a miracle. But for the vast majority of people whose workers already have their keycards, the extra biotin doesn't have a job to do. It's a water-soluble vitamin, so your body just says, "Thanks, but we're good," and excretes the excess through your urine. So let's step away from the analogy and look at the actual science, the nitty-gritty of what these construction workers are doing. The enzymes that rely on biotin as their key card are called carboxylases. This is a fancy name, but their jobs are fundamental to life. One of their main jobs is to help synthesize fatty acids. Why does that matter for your hair? Well, your skin and scalp cells are surrounded by a membrane made of fats. A healthy scalp with healthy cell membranes is the foundation, the very soil from which healthy hair grows. If the enzymes that build these fatty acids are offline, your scalp health suffers, and hair growth can be impaired. Another critical job of these biotin-dependent enzymes is in a process called gluconeogenesis. This is your body's way of creating glucose, its primary fuel source, from non-carbohydrate sources like amino acids. Your hair follicles are some of the most metabolically active cells in your body. They are tiny hair-producing factories that are running 24/7, and they demand a huge amount of energy to function. If the energy supply line is disrupted because the enzymes aren't working, the hair follicle can't do its job properly. It can't produce hair efficiently. And finally, these enzymes are involved in breaking down and using the very amino acids that are the building blocks of keratin. So you can see, biotin isn't a direct component of your hair, but it is fundamentally involved in the energy production, the cellular environment, and the raw material processing that makes hair growth possible. It's the foreman's assistant, ensuring the key teams have what they need to work. This brings us to the most important question. Who is actually missing their key cards? Who has a true biotin deficiency? Because a clinical deficiency isn't just about having slightly thinner hair or brittle nails. It's a serious medical state with very distinct symptoms that have been documented in scientific literature. The classic signs include significant hair loss, sometimes to the point of total baldness, or alopecia. Another hallmark is a scaly red rash, particularly around the eyes, nose, mouth, and other body orifices. And in more severe cases, it can lead to neurological symptoms like depression, lethargy, and even seizures. This is not the same as wanting your hair to grow an extra half-inch a month. A true deficiency is a systemic breakdown. And thankfully, it is incredibly rare in the general population of developed countries like the United States. Why? Because biotin is found in a wide variety of common foods, and your body is also excellent at recycling its existing biotin supply. However, there are specific groups of people who are at a higher risk. Understanding these groups is key. The first are individuals with a rare genetic disorder called biotinidase deficiency. These people are born without the enzyme needed to recycle biotin or extract it from food, and they require lifelong supplementation under a doctor's care. Another group can be pregnant and breastfeeding women. The rapidly growing fetus places a high demand on the mother's nutrient stores, and studies suggest that a significant portion of pregnant women may develop a mild deficiency. This is one reason why biotin is a standard component of most prenatal vitamins. Certain medications, particularly long-term use of some anticonvulsants for epilepsy, have been shown to interfere with biotin absorption. And then there's the classic and frankly kind of bizarre risk factor you might have heard about, consuming large quantities of raw egg whites. This isn't a myth. Raw egg whites contain a protein called avidin. Avidin has an incredibly strong, almost magnetic-like attraction to biotin. When you eat raw egg whites, the avidin binds to the biotin in your digestive tract, forming a complex that's too large for your body to absorb. It effectively locks up the biotin and carries it right out of your system. Now, you'd have to be consuming a lot of raw egg whites for a long time for this to become a clinical issue. We're talking bodybuilder and the ADS levels of raw egg consumption. The good news is that cooking the egg whites completely denatures the avidin, meaning it changes its shape and it can no longer bind to biotin. So your scrambled or fried eggs are perfectly safe. So, if you don't have a rare genetic disorder, you're not on specific long-term medications, and you're not living on a diet of raw egg white smoothies, the chances of you being clinically deficient are exceedingly low. For the average healthy person, the biotin you get from your diet is more than enough to hand a key card to every enzyme that needs one. And you get it from so many places. A single cooked egg provides about a third of your daily needs. Salmon, pork, and beef are excellent sources. So are nuts and seeds like almonds and sunflower seeds. Even vegetables and fruits like sweet potatoes, spinach, and avocados contain meaningful amounts. Your gut bacteria even produce some biotin for you. You are most likely not deficient. You are most likely getting everything you need to keep those critical construction workers on the job. Which leads us to the great paradox of biotin. If deficiency is rare, and most of us have enough, why are there tens of thousands of glowing 5-star reviews online from people who are not clinically deficient, who swear that taking megadoses of biotin transformed their hair from dull and lifeless to thick and flowing? Are they all experiencing a placebo effect? Or is there something else going on? Is there a hidden mechanism that these high doses are tapping into, something that the basic nutritional science doesn't fully account for? This is where the story gets really interesting. It's where we move beyond simple deficiency and into the world of pharmacological doses, and what they might be doing to your hair follicles on a cellular level. To understand this, we first need to make a critical distinction between a nutritional dose and a pharmacological dose. A nutritional dose is the amount you need to prevent a deficiency. It's the recommended daily allowance, the amount that keeps the basic machinery of your body from breaking down. For biotin, this is a tiny amount, just 30 micrograms a day for an adult. Most of us get this easily from a normal diet. A pharmacological dose, however, is something else entirely. This is what you see in those supplements: 5,000 micrograms, 10,000 micrograms, sometimes even more. That's not 10 or 20 times the daily requirement. It's over 300 times the amount your body technically needs to avoid being deficient. When you take a dose that high, you are no longer just correcting a nutritional shortfall. You are using the vitamin like a tool, attempting to create a specific biological effect that goes beyond its basic function. You're effectively trying to push a natural process into a higher gear. So the question isn't just, does biotin work? The real question is, what biological process are we trying to supercharge with these massive doses, and does it actually work for hair? The entire theory hinges on one single, incredibly important protein: keratin. Keratin is the stuff your hair is made of. It's a fibrous structural protein. Think of it as the raw building material, the bricks and mortar for every single hair strand on your head. And the production of keratin is a complex, multi-step biochemical process. It's like an intricate assembly line inside your cells. Now this is where biotin takes center stage. Biotin's primary job in the human body is to act as a coenzyme for a group of 5 special enzymes called carboxylases. That sounds technical, but the concept is simple. Imagine these carboxylase enzymes are the master foremen on the keratin assembly line. They are absolutely essential. Without them, the whole production process grinds to a halt. But these foremen can't do their job alone. They need a special key to activate their machinery, to turn on the power to the assembly line. That key is biotin. Without biotin, the carboxylase foremen are just standing around, unable to work. The keratin factory goes dark. No keratin gets produced. And if you're not producing the very building blocks of hair, your existing hair weakens and new hair growth suffers. This is precisely why a true biotin deficiency leads to hair loss. You've literally cut the power to the hair factory. So, taking a nutritional dose of biotin when you're deficient is like finding the key, putting it in the ignition, and turning the factory back on. Problem solved. But that doesn't explain why someone with perfectly normal biotin levels might see a benefit from a 10,000 microgram supplement. Their factory is already on. The key is in the ignition. The assembly line is running. So what is the megadose doing? The hypothesis, and this is the core of the entire biotin for hair growth argument, is that flooding the system with an overwhelming surplus of the key doesn't just turn the factory on. It might actually optimize and accelerate the entire production line. It's the difference between having just enough fuel to run the engine and hooking the engine up to a high-octane supercharged fuel line. The theory is that by providing an abundance of this critical coenzyme, you ensure that those keratin-producing enzymes are working at their absolute maximum potential efficiency. Every single enzyme that needs a biotin key gets one instantly. There is zero waiting, zero lag time. The system becomes saturated with the one component it absolutely cannot function without. Let's zoom in even closer, right down to the cellular level. One of these key enzymes that biotin activates is called acetyl-CoA carboxylase. This enzyme is the gatekeeper for a process called fatty acid synthesis. It's the very first step in creating the fats that your body needs to build healthy cell membranes. Your hair follicle is made of cells. A healthier, more robust cell membrane could theoretically lead to a healthier, more robust follicle, which is the tiny organ responsible for growing your hair. A stronger follicle might be better at anchoring the hair, potentially reducing shedding. Another one of these enzymes, pyruvate carboxylase, is critical for making glucose, the primary energy source for your cells. Hair follicles are metabolic powerhouses. They contain some of the most rapidly dividing cells in your entire body. That process of constant cell division and hair creation requires a tremendous amount of energy. By ensuring the enzyme responsible for energy production is working at peak capacity, you could be providing the follicle with more fuel to do its demanding job. So, the idea is that a pharmacological dose of biotin acts as a systemic catalyst. It's not just flipping a switch from off to on. It's potentially turning the dimmer dial all the way up to maximum brightness. You're not just fixing a problem, you're attempting to optimize a system. You're ensuring that the entire biochemical pathway, from raw materials to energy production to the final assembly of the keratin protein, is running as smoothly and efficiently as biologically possible. You're removing any potential bottleneck that a scarcity of biotin, even a minor subclinical one, might cause. This is a powerful and elegant theory. It explains why a vitamin, not a drug, could have such a pronounced effect. It makes sense on a biochemical level. It paints a picture of our hair follicles as tiny factories that can be fine-tuned and made more productive with the right input. It suggests that even if you're not deficient in the classical medical sense, your cellular machinery might not be running at its absolute best. The megadose is an attempt to biohack that system, to push it toward its theoretical limit of keratin production. But here's the multi-million-dollar question. Even if we supercharge the keratin factory inside the cell, does that actually create a thicker, stronger, longer strand of hair on your head? Is there a bottleneck somewhere else in the system? The link between the cellular magic and the mirror is where the evidence gets fascinating, and sometimes incredibly frustrating. And that's exactly where we're going next. So, we have this incredible cellular machine, the hair follicle, that absolutely needs biotin to function. And we know that if you don't give it biotin, the machine sputters, it stalls, and eventually it stops producing hair. That's a scientific fact. But here's the million-dollar question, the one that built a multi-billion-dollar industry. If you give a perfectly functioning machine more of one specific part, does it suddenly become a super machine? If your car's engine is running fine, does pouring more oil into it make it go faster? Or does it just make a mess? This is the frustrating gap between the lab bench and your bathroom mirror. To understand why biotin became the poster child for hair health, we have to look at where the evidence is strongest, where it's absolutely undeniable. And that place is in cases of true, clinically diagnosed biotin deficiency. Now, before you run to the store, it's critical to understand that this condition is incredibly rare in the developed world. We're talking extremely rare. Most doctors will go their entire careers without seeing a single case. But when it does happen, the effects are dramatic. The classic symptoms aren't just about hair. They include a specific type of scaly, red rash, often around the eyes, nose, and mouth. They can include neurological issues like lethargy, and even hallucinations. And, most relevant to our conversation, significant hair loss or alopecia. In these rare cases, supplementing with biotin isn't just helpful. It's a miracle. There are documented case studies where individuals, including infants with a rare genetic disorder called biotinidase deficiency that prevents them from recycling biotin, go from having very little hair to a full, healthy head of hair after being put on biotin therapy. The transformation is stunning. It's the kind of before and after picture that marketing departments dream of. And it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that a lack of biotin can directly cause hair loss, and that providing it can reverse the problem. So why is this deficiency so rare? There are three main reasons. First, the amount of biotin our bodies actually need on a daily basis is tiny. The recommended adequate intake for an adult is only about 30 micrograms. To put that in perspective, many popular supplements on the shelf contain 5,000 or even 10,000 micrograms. That's over 16,000 to 33,000% of your daily need in a single pill. Second, biotin is found in a huge variety of common foods. One single cooked egg contains about a third of your daily requirement. A handful of almonds, a serving of salmon, pork, beef, sunflower seeds, sweet potatoes, it's everywhere. If you are eating a reasonably varied diet, you are almost certainly getting all the biotin you need. And third, and this is a fascinating piece of our biology, the trillions of good bacteria living in your intestines, your gut microbiome, actually produce biotin for you. They synthesize it right inside your body, providing a little extra supply that gets absorbed. So between a normal diet and our helpful gut bacteria, our bodies are almost always fully stocked. The biotin factory has all the supplies it needs. Now, there are specific situations beyond those rare genetic conditions that can put someone at a higher risk for deficiency. Chronic, heavy alcohol consumption can impair biotin absorption. Certain medications, like long-term use of anticonvulsants for epilepsy, can interfere with it. Conditions that affect nutrient absorption in the gut, like Crohn's disease, can also be a factor. And there's the classic textbook example you always hear about: bodybuilders in the 80s who would drink raw eggs. Raw egg whites contain a protein called Biotin, which binds to biotin like a magnet and prevents your body from absorbing it. You'd have to eat a lot of raw egg whites for a very long time for this to be a problem, but it illustrates the point. For these specific groups, under a doctor's supervision, biotin supplementation can be a necessary and effective treatment. So, this brings us back to the central question: what about the rest of us? The 99.9% of people who are not in these high-risk categories, who don't have a diagnosed deficiency, but who are walking down the supplement aisle looking for thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair. What does the science say about us pouring thousands of extra micrograms of biotin into a system that is, by all accounts, already full? This is where we have to talk about how our body handles B vitamins. Biotin is a water-soluble vitamin. Unlike fat-soluble vitamins, which can be stored in your body's fat tissue for a long time, your body doesn't really maintain a large reserve of water-soluble vitamins. It has a very simple, very efficient policy: it takes what it needs right now, and it gets rid of the rest. Imagine your body is a glass of water, and that glass is already full to the brim. That full glass represents having sufficient biotin levels for all your bodily functions, including making keratin for your hair. Now, you take a 10,000 microgram biotin pill. That's like taking a giant pitcher of water and pouring it into that already full glass. What happens? A tiny bit might be used if there's an immediate need, but the vast majority simply overflows, spills down the side, and goes right down the drain. That's precisely what your body does with excess biotin. Your kidneys filter it out of your blood, and you simply pee it out. You are, in a very real sense, creating expensive urine. The idea that more is better simply doesn't align with how our bodies are designed to work with this specific nutrient. But wait, you might be thinking, my friend swears by it. My hairstylist recommended it. I saw 1,000 5-star reviews online from people who said their hair has never been better. This is the incredibly compelling anecdotal evidence that fuels the entire industry, and it can't be ignored. So, what do the rigorous scientific studies say when they look at healthy people with no deficiency? This is where the evidence gets incredibly murky and, frankly, unsatisfying. The number of high-quality, large-scale, randomized, placebo-controlled trials, the gold standard of scientific research, testing the effect of biotin alone on hair growth in healthy individuals, is shockingly small. It's almost non-existent. Many of the studies that are often cited as proof that biotin works have some major caveats. Either the study participants had a pre-existing condition or a baseline deficiency, in which case, yes, it works, but that doesn't apply to the general population. Or the studies are very small without a proper control group, making the results unreliable. But the biggest issue is that most of the popular studies that showed a positive effect on hair used a supplement that was a cocktail of ingredients. They contain biotin, yes, but they also contain things like zinc, iron, vitamin C, marine collagen, and various other extracts. When the people in the study report better hair, it's impossible to know which ingredient was responsible. Was it the biotin? Was it the zinc, since zinc deficiency is also known to cause hair loss? Was it the collagen? Or was it the synergistic effect of all of them working together? We simply can't say that biotin was the hero of the story. It's like a football team winning the Super Bowl and giving all the credit to just one player, ignoring the quarterback, the defense, and the special teams. It's scientifically impossible to draw that conclusion. So if the hard evidence is so weak, why do so many people feel a genuine positive effect? Part of it could be the powerful placebo effect. When you make a decision to improve your hair, and you invest money in a pill you believe will work, you subconsciously start paying more attention. You notice every good hair day. You might treat your hair more gently. You start looking for positive changes, and because you're looking for them, you find them. Your belief itself can create a perceived reality. When you combine that with brilliant marketing, a simple, compelling story, the beauty vitamin, and a flood of influencer testimonials, you have a recipe for a blockbuster supplement. The science may be thin, but the story is powerful. But beyond just being a waste of money for most people, there's a more serious side to this. Taking these megadoses of biotin isn't just a neutral act. It can have significant, and potentially dangerous, consequences that have nothing to do with your hair, and everything to do with your health. There's a critical warning that even many doctors weren't aware of until recently. A hidden interference that can throw a wrench into some of the most important medical tests you might ever need. And that's a risk you need to know about. This interference happens because of the very same property that makes biotin so useful in scientific research. Its incredibly strong bond with a protein called streptavidin. Think of it like molecular superglue. It's one of the most powerful, specific, and reliable connections found in nature. Scientists love this. They've harnessed this biotin-streptavidin bond to design hundreds of different laboratory tests, known as immunoassays. These tests are the workhorses of modern medicine. They measure everything from your thyroid hormones to your vitamin D levels, and even critical markers that tell a doctor if you're having a heart attack. Here's a simplified way to picture how it works. Imagine the test is trying to measure a specific substance in your blood. Let's call it Substance X. The test uses tiny magnetic beads coated with that superglue, streptavidin. Then it uses a detector molecule that is tagged with biotin. This detector is designed to grab onto Substance X. When everything is mixed together, the biotin tag detector grabs Substance X, and then the streptavidin-coated bead grabs the biotin. The lab equipment can then easily count these captured units and tell you exactly how much of Substance X is in your blood. It's a brilliant, elegant system that relies on that perfect, unbreakable bond. Now, what happens when you take a high-dose biotin supplement, say 10,000 micrograms? Your blood becomes flooded with free-floating biotin molecules. When your blood sample gets to the lab, all this extra biotin starts competing. It's like a game of musical chairs where thousands of extra players have suddenly jumped onto the floor. The lab test's carefully designed system is thrown into chaos. This excess biotin can either block the test from working correctly or create false connections, leading to results that are dangerously wrong. And the consequences can be devastating. Let's talk about the single most critical test affected, the troponin test. Troponin is a protein that is released into the bloodstream when the heart muscle is damaged, like during a heart attack. When someone comes into the emergency room with chest pain, doctors rely on a rapid troponin test to make a life or death decision. A high level means it's likely a heart attack, and they need to intervene immediately. A low level might suggest the pain is from something else. But high-dose biotin can interfere with this test, causing a falsely low troponin reading. Imagine this scenario, which the FDA has explicitly warned about. A person who has been taking 10,000 micrograms of biotin daily for healthier hair wakes up with chest pain and shortness of breath. They get to the ER and the doctors run a troponin test. Because of the biotin interference, the test comes back negative. The results suggest there's no heart muscle damage. The doctors, reassured by this clean lab result, might conclude it's just anxiety or indigestion and send the patient home. But in reality, the patient is having a heart attack. The damage to their heart is ongoing, untreated, and the window for life-saving intervention is closing with every minute that passes. This isn't just a theoretical risk. The FDA has received reports of at least one death linked to this exact scenario. It's not just emergency tests either. Biotin interference wreaks havoc on hormone testing, especially thyroid tests. Your TSH, T3, and T4 levels are crucial for diagnosing and managing thyroid conditions. High levels of biotin in the blood can make someone with an underactive thyroid, hypothyroidism, appear to have normal or even overactive thyroid levels. Their doctor might miss the diagnosis entirely, leaving them to suffer with symptoms like fatigue, weight gain, and depression. Conversely, it can also mimic Graves' disease, a serious autoimmune disorder causing an overactive thyroid. A person could be misdiagnosed and put on powerful medications with significant side effects that they never needed in the first place, all because of a supplement they were taking for their hair. The list of affected tests is long and concerning. It includes tests for fertility hormones like HCG, which is used to confirm pregnancy. A false negative could be emotionally devastating. It can affect tests for parathyroid hormone, cortisol, vitamin D, and even certain cancer markers. You could be getting a completely skewed picture of your health, leading to misdiagnoses, incorrect treatments, and unnecessary anxiety. This problem became so widespread and so serious that in November 2017, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration issued an official safety communication titled, "The FDA warns that biotin may interfere with lab tests." They updated it in 2019, highlighting the life-threatening risk of missed heart attack diagnoses. The warning was a wake-up call for the medical community, as many doctors and lab technicians were simply unaware that a common, over-the-counter vitamin could cause such chaos. So, how much biotin is enough to cause a problem? The interference isn't typically seen with the low amounts of biotin you'd get from food or a standard daily multivitamin, which might have around 30 to 100 micrograms. The risk comes from what are called supraphysiologic doses, the very high amounts found in supplements marketed for hair, skin, and nails. These often contain 5,000, 10,000, or even 20,000 micrograms per pill. That's hundreds or even thousands of times the daily recommended intake. At these levels, the risk of lab test interference is very real. Now, this doesn't mean you need to panic and throw out your supplements. The solution is actually incredibly simple, but it requires you to be your own health advocate. First, and most importantly, you must tell your doctor about every single supplement you take, including biotin. Don't assume it's not important. Write it down before your appointment if you have to. Second, if you are scheduled for any lab work, the general guideline from medical experts is to stop taking any high-dose biotin supplements for at least 72 hours, or 3 full days before your blood is drawn. Biotin is a water-soluble vitamin, meaning your body doesn't store it for long. It has a relatively short half-life, so within about 3 days, the excess levels in your blood should drop enough to no longer interfere with most lab assays. For some specific tests or in people with kidney issues, a longer washout period might be needed, which is why communicating with your doctor is non-negotiable. This is a perfect example of how something seemingly harmless, a simple vitamin, can have profound and unexpected consequences within the complex system of our bodies and our healthcare. It's a powerful reminder that natural doesn't always mean no side effects, and that more isn't always better. The key is awareness. Knowing about this potential interaction empowers you to take simple steps to protect yourself, ensuring that the tests you and your doctor rely on are giving you a true picture of your health. So we've uncovered this hidden danger, a serious risk that comes with the very high doses of biotin that have become so popular. But it all begs the bigger question, with all this potential for harm, does taking all this extra biotin even work for hair growth in the first place? Is the multi-billion-dollar industry built on a solid foundation of science? Or is it something else entirely? The answer, based on dozens of clinical studies, is probably not what you think. To understand if biotin supplements actually work, we first have to look at where the idea came from. And the connection is undeniable. A severe clinical biotin deficiency leads to devastating symptoms. We're talking about significant hair loss, or alopecia, brittle nails, and red, scaly skin rashes. When doctors gave these deficient patients biotin, the results were often dramatic. Their hair grew back, their skin cleared up, their nails strengthened. It looked like a miracle cure. And from a marketing perspective, the logic that followed was simple, seductive, and incredibly profitable. If a lack of biotin causes hair loss, then more biotin must cause incredible hair growth. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human body works. It's a classic logical fallacy. Think of it like this. If your car is completely out of oil, the engine will seize and the car won't run. Adding oil will fix the problem and get it running again. But does that mean if you keep pouring gallon after gallon of oil into an already full engine, your car will transform into a Formula One race car? Of course not. You'll just have a greasy mess on your garage floor. The engine only needs a specific amount to function optimally. Anything more is not just useless. It can actually cause other problems. Your body's relationship with biotin is exactly the same. It has an optimal level. For the vast majority of people in the developed world who eat a reasonably varied diet, that level is already being met. So, what happens when you, a person with perfectly normal biotin levels, take one of those high-potency supplements with 5,000 or even 10,000 micrograms of biotin? Well, remember how we talked about biotin being a water-soluble vitamin? This is the crucial piece of the puzzle. Unlike fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin D or A, which your body can store in your liver and fat tissues for later use, your body has no effective storage system for excess B vitamins like biotin. It's an incredibly efficient, just-in-time system. Your body will absorb the biotin, take the tiny amount it needs to power those carboxylase enzymes we discussed, and then your kidneys will identify the massive surplus. They'll diligently filter it all out of your bloodstream and flush it out of your system within a few hours. To put it bluntly, for most people, taking high-dose biotin supplements is one of the most expensive ways to change the color and composition of their urine. That's the biological reality. Now you might be thinking, okay, that makes sense, but what about all the studies? The supplement bottles always mention studies that show they work. And you're right, they do. But this is where we have to put on our critical thinking hats and look at what those studies actually say, not what the marketing headlines claim they say. When you dig into the research used to promote biotin for hair growth in the general population, you find a recurring, glaring issue. The vast majority of these studies, the ones that show a positive effect, are not studying biotin in isolation. They are almost always studying a proprietary blend, a cocktail supplement that contains biotin plus a dozen other ingredients. Let's look at a couple of the most frequently cited studies. In a well-known 2015 double-blind, placebo-controlled study, a group of women with self-perceived thinning hair were given a supplement twice a day for 90 days. At the end of the study, this group showed significant improvements in hair growth, volume, and thickness compared to the group taking a placebo pill. Case closed, right? Biotin works. But here's the catch. The supplement they were taking wasn't just biotin. It was a proprietary marine protein complex that also contained zinc, vitamin C, and iron. So what caused the hair growth? Was it the biotin? Or was it the zinc, since zinc deficiency is a known cause of hair loss? Was it the iron, given that low iron is one of the most common causes of hair thinning in women? Was it the marine protein itself? The honest answer is we have no idea. Because the study wasn't designed to test biotin, it was designed to test their specific multi-ingredient product. Attributing the positive results solely to biotin is scientifically dishonest. It's like making a smoothie with bananas, spinach, protein powder, and almond milk, feeling great afterwards, and then declaring to the world that almond milk is the ultimate superfood. You've ignored all the other active ingredients. This pattern repeats itself across the board. Another popular study from 2012 found similar positive results for hair growth. But again, the supplement wasn't just biotin. It was a formula containing biotin and a specific marine complex. Almost every single positive study you'll find is structured this way. They test a cocktail of ingredients, and biotin is just one passenger on a bus full of other, more well-established hair health nutrients like iron, zinc, and protein. To date, there is a profound lack of strong, large-scale, placebo-controlled studies that show high-dose biotin supplementation on its own has any significant effect on hair growth, thickness, or strength in healthy individuals who are not deficient. The evidence for the general population just isn't there. So why do so many people you know and trust, swear by it? There are a few powerful factors at play. First, the placebo effect is incredibly real, especially in the world of beauty and wellness. When you invest money in a product and commit to a daily ritual, your brain is primed to see results. You start paying closer attention to your hair. You might handle it more gently. You start looking for any sign of improvement, and your confirmation bias kicks in, making you notice the good days more than the bad. You believe it will work, and so you perceive that it is working. Second, many people who start taking a hair vitamin don't just do that one thing. They often start a whole new health kick. They might start eating better, drinking more water, or using better hair products. When their hair improves a few months later, they naturally give the credit to the most tangible new thing they introduced, the daily pill. And third, it's entirely possible that some of these people had a subclinical, undiagnosed deficiency in not just biotin, but one of the other ingredients in their multivitamin like zinc or iron. The supplement worked, but not for the reason they think. The biotin was just along for the ride. The core scientific truth remains. Your body only needs a very small amount of biotin to facilitate the production of keratin, the protein that makes up your hair. We're talking about 30 micrograms a day for the average adult. A 10,000 microgram supplement gives you over 33,000% of your daily value. Pumping 33,000% of the required fuel into the keratin factory doesn't make the assembly line run faster. The workers, the enzymes, are already working at full capacity. The excess fuel just gets hauled away by the cleanup crew, your kidneys. The foundation of the multi-billion-dollar biotin industry, as it applies to the general population, is built not on solid, isolated scientific evidence, but on a logical leap, flawed studies of ingredient cocktails, and powerful anecdotal marketing. This all leads to a much more serious question. If taking these massive doses isn't really helping the hair of most people, is it at least harmless? Is the only side effect really just expensive urine? Or, in our quest for better hair, could we be taking something that is actively interfering with our health in ways we don't even realize? The answer to that is critically important, because these megadoses of biotin come with a hidden danger that even many doctors are not aware of. This hidden danger isn't a new allergy or a stomachache, or some kind of long-term organ damage from the vitamin itself. In fact, it has nothing to do with how your body metabolizes biotin at all. The danger is silent, invisible, and it happens when you're seeking answers about your health from the very people you trust the most, your doctors. The problem is that high doses of biotin can cause chaos with your lab results. It's a molecular imposter, a wrench thrown into the gears of modern medical diagnostics, and the results can be catastrophic. To understand how this happens, we need to peek behind the curtain at how many common blood tests actually work. Imagine a very specific lock and a very specific key. Many of the most important tests in medicine, use a system that relies on biotin's unique properties. Think of it like this. Scientists use a molecule called streptavidin as a sort of grabber or magnet in the test. And what does streptavidin grab onto with incredible strength and specificity? Biotin. It's one of the strongest non-covalent bonds found in nature. So, in a lab test, they'll attach this biotin key to a substance they want to measure like a hormone. Then they use the streptavidin magnet to pull it out of your blood sample and measure how much they caught. It's an elegant, incredibly sensitive system that allows us to detect tiny amounts of substances in your blood. Now here's where the problem starts. When you take a 10,000 microgram biotin supplement, your blood becomes flooded with free-floating biotin molecules. You've essentially dumped a billion extra keys into the system. So when the lab runs your blood test, the streptavidin magnets in the test kit get completely overwhelmed. They start grabbing all the free biotin from your supplement instead of the biotin attached to the hormone they're supposed to be measuring. The test is essentially flying blind. It can't find what it's looking for because of all the interference. What does this interference look like in the real world? It leads to test results that are dangerously, wildly inaccurate. And this isn't a rare one-in-a-million side effect. This is a well-documented an issue so significant that in 2017, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, issued an official safety communication to the public and to healthcare providers, warning them about this exact problem. They even updated it in 2019 because the problem was persisting. Let's talk about the specific tests that are most impacted because this is where it gets truly frightening. The first and one of the most common is thyroid testing. Your thyroid hormones control your metabolism, your energy levels, your mood, your body temperature. They are master regulators of your body. When a doctor suspects a thyroid issue, they'll order a panel that often includes thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH, and thyroid hormones like T3 and T4. High-dose biotin can artificially make your TSH levels look extremely low, and your T3 and T4 levels look extremely high. What does that lab report look like to a doctor? It looks like a classic case of hyperthyroidism, or Graves' disease, a serious autoimmune condition where your thyroid is dangerously overactive. So imagine this scenario. You're taking biotin for your hair. You've been feeling a bit tired and run down, maybe you've gained a little weight, symptoms that could be a million different things. You go to your doctor, they run a thyroid panel, and the results come back looking like you have severe hyperthyroidism. Your doctor, unaware of your high-dose biotin supplement, might start you on powerful anti-thyroid medications. Medications you absolutely do not need. These drugs have serious side effects, and they're designed to shut down your thyroid. So now, you're taking a medication that is actively making you hypothyroid, causing extreme fatigue, weight gain, depression, and a host of other debilitating symptoms, all because a hair supplement created a phantom diagnosis. You get sicker and sicker, and the doctors are baffled because they're chasing a problem that doesn't exist, all while the real cause of your initial fatigue goes unaddressed. But it gets even more serious. The most life-threatening interference is with a test for a protein called troponin. When you have a heart attack, your heart muscle cells are damaged and they die, releasing troponin into your bloodstream. In the emergency room, when someone comes in with chest pain, one of the first things they do is run a high-sensitivity troponin test. It is the gold standard for diagnosing a heart attack. A rising troponin level tells the ER team that this is a true cardiac event, and they need to act immediately to save heart muscle and, potentially, the patient's life. But the troponin assay is one of those tests that often uses the biotin streptavidin system. If a person having a heart attack has been taking high-dose biotin, the excess biotin in their blood can interfere with the test and produce a falsely low, or even normal troponin level. Think about the implications of that. A patient is in the emergency room, actively having a heart attack, but the key blood test comes back negative. The doctor might conclude the chest pain is just anxiety or indigestion, and send the patient home. The FDA has received at least one report of a death directly linked to this exact scenario. A patient taking high biotin levels had a heart attack, the troponin test was falsely negative, and the patient died. This isn't just an inconvenience. It's a matter of life and death. The list of affected tests is long and includes many other crucial markers. It can interfere with hormone tests, like those for fertility, FSH and LH, pregnancy tests, HCG, and sex hormones like testosterone and estradiol. It can affect tests for parathyroid hormone, which regulates calcium in your blood. It can even throw off levels of other vitamins like vitamin D and stress hormones like cortisol. Essentially, any test using this specific immunoassay technology is vulnerable. So why isn't this more widely known? Why wouldn't your doctor just ask you if you're taking biotin? The truth is, awareness is still catching up. Many people don't consider over-the-counter supplements to be real medicine, so they don't think to mention them to their doctor. And while awareness among doctors and lab technicians has grown since the FDA warnings, it's not yet universal. They may not think to ask, especially if you're there for something that seems unrelated like chest pain. This brings us to the most important point. What can you do to protect yourself? The solution is actually quite simple, but it requires you to be your own health advocate. First, you must treat your supplements like any other medication. Keep a list and tell your doctor and your pharmacist about everything you take every single time. Don't just list your prescriptions. List your vitamins, your minerals, your herbs, and yes, especially your biotin. Specify the dose. There's a world of difference between the 30 micrograms in a multivitamin and the 10,000 micrograms in a hair, skin, and nails formula. Second, if your doctor is ordering any kind of blood work, you should proactively ask, "I'm taking a high-dose biotin supplement. Could this interfere with any of these tests?" This single question could save you from a misdiagnosis. The standard recommendation from most laboratories and medical experts is to stop taking high-dose biotin supplements for at least 72 hours, or 3 days, before having your blood drawn. This gives your body enough time to clear the excess biotin from your system, so it won't interfere with the test results. Of course, you should always follow the specific instructions given to you by your healthcare provider. The key takeaway here is that while biotin itself is safe, the megadoses found in beauty supplements create a very specific and dangerous problem within the diagnostic process. It's a classic case of more is not better. We've been convinced that flooding our system with this one vitamin is the secret to perfect hair. But we've overlooked the very real risks that come with it. This leads to a fundamental question. If biotin deficiency is so rare that it's almost a non-issue for most people, and taking high doses doesn't seem to provide a significant benefit for hair growth while simultaneously posing a serious risk to our medical care, then what are we supposed to do? What actually works? If biotin isn't the magic bullet we've been sold, what is? What does the science say we should really be focusing on for stronger, healthier hair? The answer is we have to go back to the source. We have to stop looking for a single magic pill solution and start thinking about our hair like a complex living system, because that's what it is. Healthy hair isn't built in a lab. It's grown from a healthy body. The real question isn't what supplement should I take? The real question is, what does my hair actually need to build itself? First, let's establish a fundamental truth that gets lost in all the marketing noise. Your hair is not a separate entity. It is a direct reflection of your internal health. It's an external barometer of what's happening inside your body. And just like building a strong, sturdy house, you can't start with the paint and decorations. You have to start with the foundation and the raw materials. The absolute number one, non-negotiable raw material for your hair is protein. This isn't a theory, it's biology. Hair is made of a protein called keratin. If you are not consuming enough protein, your body, in its infinite wisdom, will ration it. And guess what's at the bottom of the priority list when it comes to survival? Your hair. Your body will direct that precious protein to essential functions like organ repair and muscle maintenance long before it sends it to your scalp. This is why crash diets or periods of poor nutrition often result in significant hair shedding. Your body is literally deprioritizing hair construction. So, before you even think about a specialty supplement, ask yourself, am I getting enough high-quality protein from sources like lean meats, fish, eggs? Or if you're plant-based, a well-planned combination of legumes, tofu, and quinoa? Without these foundational building blocks, everything else is pointless. Next on the list of non-negotiables is iron. Iron deficiency is one of the most common nutritional deficiencies in the world, especially for women, and it is a well-established cause of hair loss. Think of it this way, protein is the bricks for the hair strand, but iron is the transportation system that gets all the materials to the construction site. Iron is a critical component of hemoglobin, the molecule in your red blood cells that carries oxygen. Your hair follicles are tiny, high-energy factories that require a constant, rich supply of oxygen to function and grow. When your iron levels are low, that oxygen delivery system becomes sluggish. The follicles become starved of the energy they need to do their job, and they can be prematurely pushed into the shedding phase, a condition known as telogen effluvium. This is why a doctor investigating hair loss will almost always check your ferritin levels, which is a measure of your body's iron stores. Ensuring you have adequate iron from sources like red meat, spinach, lentils, and fortified cereals is absolutely crucial for maintaining a healthy hair growth cycle. But just eating iron isn't enough. You need to be able to absorb it. And that's where vitamin C comes in. We think of vitamin C for our immune system, but for our hair, it plays two critical roles. First, it is a powerful antioxidant that helps protect the hair follicle from damage caused by free radicals. Second, and perhaps more importantly, vitamin C is essential for the absorption of non-heme iron, the type of iron found in plant-based sources. So, pairing your iron-rich foods with vitamin C-rich foods, like bell peppers, strawberries, and citrus fruits, creates a powerful synergy that helps ensure that iron actually gets into your system and can be transported to your scalp. Vitamin C is also vital for creating collagen, a protein that contributes to the strength of your hair strands and the health of the skin on your scalp. Now let's talk about the unsung hero of the hair world, zinc. If protein is the bricks and iron is the delivery truck, zinc is the construction foreman. It plays a critical role in hair tissue growth and repair. It also helps keep the oil glands around the follicles working properly, which is essential for a healthy, moisturized scalp. Zinc deficiency has been directly linked to hair loss because, without that foreman on site, the whole construction process can grind to a halt. The body simply can't efficiently synthesize the proteins needed to build new hair. Foods like oysters, beef, pumpkin seeds, and lentils are excellent sources of this vital mineral. So we have the building blocks, the delivery system, and the foreman. But what about the overall environment? We need to look beyond the individual strands and focus on the ground they grow from, the scalp. You can have all the best nutrients in the world floating around in your bloodstream, but if they can't get to the follicle, it doesn't matter. This is all about circulation. Healthy blood flow to the scalp is paramount. It's the final step in delivering that oxygen and all those nutrients we just talked about directly to the base of the hair follicle. Things that may support healthy scalp circulation are often simple and free. Gentle scalp massage, for example, is thought to increase blood flow and can even help reduce stress, which we'll get to in a moment. Regular exercise, which boosts circulation throughout your entire body, also benefits your scalp. Conversely, things that constrict blood vessels like smoking can have a negative impact on the health of your follicles over time. The scalp is not just skin. It's the living garden from which your hair grows. Nurturing it is a critical piece of the puzzle. Finally, we arrive at the most powerful and often most overlooked factor in hair health: the internal hormonal environment, primarily governed by stress. This is the architect of the entire project, the one who can shut down the whole construction site with a single command. When you are under chronic stress, your body produces a hormone called cortisol. In short bursts, cortisol is helpful. It's part of our fight or flight response. But when it's chronically elevated, it can wreak havoc on your body, including your hair growth cycles. High levels of cortisol can signal a significant number of hair follicles to prematurely shift from the growing phase, anagen, into the resting phase, telogen. A few months later, all of those hairs enter the shedding phase, exogen, at once, and you experience a noticeable increase in hair fall. This is the same mechanism behind telogen effluvium that we see with iron deficiency. It's your body perceiving a state of emergency and diverting resources away from non-essential activities like growing hair. This is why managing stress through practices like mindfulness, meditation, adequate sleep, and regular physical activity isn't just a nice-to-have for your mental well-being. It is a biological necessity for healthy hair. It directly influences the hormonal signals that tell your hair whether it's safe to grow or if it's time to shut down production. Similarly, other major hormonal shifts, like those that occur postpartum, during menopause, or with thyroid conditions, can have a profound impact on hair. The endocrine system is the master regulator, and when it's out of balance, hair is often one of the first places we see the signs. So, when we strip away all the hype, the science points not to a single miracle ingredient but to a holistic system. It's a synergy of protein, iron, vitamin C, and zinc. It's a healthy, well-circulated scalp, and it's a balanced internal environment, free from the destructive influence of chronic stress. This is the real foundation. This is what actually works. It's not as sexy as a magic pill, and it requires more effort than simply swallowing a capsule, but it's the truth. But what if you're doing all of this? You're eating a balanced diet, you're managing your stress, you're taking care of your scalp, but you're still seeing thinning or loss that concerns you. When does it cross the line from a lifestyle issue to a medical one that requires a different level of intervention? And what are the clinically proven options that a dermatologist might actually recommend when nutrition and stress management aren't enough? That's where we have to separate the marketing from the medicine and look at the treatments that have survived the rigors of scientific testing. So what are these options? Let's open up the dermatologist's real-world toolkit for hair loss. The first and most well-known tool is a topical treatment called minoxidil, which you probably know by its brand name, Rogaine. The story of minoxidil is actually fascinating. It was originally developed as a medication to treat high blood pressure, but researchers noticed a very peculiar side effect in patients. They were growing hair in places they didn't expect. It was a classic case of scientific serendipity. They realized that while it wasn't the best blood pressure drug, it might be a groundbreaking hair growth treatment. So how does it work? We still don't know the exact mechanism down to the last molecule, but the leading theory is twofold. First, minoxidil is a vasodilator, meaning it widens the blood vessels. When you apply it to the scalp, it's thought to increase blood flow to the hair follicles. More blood flow means a richer supply of oxygen and nutrients, the very building blocks your hair needs to thrive. Think of it like upgrading a tiny country road to a 6-lane superhighway for nutrient delivery trucks. Suddenly, the construction site, your hair follicle, is getting everything it needs on time and in abundance. The second, and perhaps more important function, is its effect on the hair growth cycle. Minoxidil seems to push hair follicles from the resting, or telogen, phase into the active growing, or anagen, phase. And once they're in that anagen phase, it helps keep them there longer. So not only are you potentially waking up sleepy follicles, you're also extending the productive lifespan of your active ones, which can lead to longer, thicker-looking hair over time. Now, a critical thing to understand about minoxidil is that it's a commitment. It doesn't cure the underlying cause of hair loss. It just manages the symptoms. This means you have to apply it consistently, typically once or twice a day, every day. If you stop, any hair that grew as a result of the treatment is likely to fall out within a few months as the follicles revert to their previous state. Also, many users experience something called the dread shed in the first few weeks. This is where you actually seem to lose more hair. It can be terrifying, but it's often a sign the medication is working. It's pushing out the old, weaker hairs to make way for the new, stronger anagen hairs to come through. It's a process that requires patience and trust. But what if the problem isn't just about blood flow or coaxing follicles into a growth phase? What if the follicle is under a direct, targeted attack? This is often the case with androgenetic alopecia, or male and female pattern baldness. And for that, dermatologists have a much more specific tool. This leads us to oral medications, with the most prominent being finasteride, often known by the brand name Propecia. To understand finasteride, you need to understand the primary villain in pattern hair loss, a hormone called dihydrotestosterone, or DHT. Your body naturally converts a certain percentage of testosterone into DHT, using an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase. For people genetically predisposed to hair loss, their follicles are highly sensitive to DHT. When DHT attaches to a receptor on these follicles, it triggers a process called miniaturization. It slowly strangles the follicle, causing it to shrink over time. With each growth cycle, the hair that emerges is thinner, shorter, and weaker, until eventually the follicle just gives up and stops producing hair altogether. Finasteride works by inhibiting that 5-alpha reductase enzyme. It's like a bodyguard that steps in and prevents the conversion of testosterone into the follicle-shrinking DHT. By dramatically lowering the levels of DHT in your scalp and your system, finasteride removes the primary antagonist that's causing the follicles to shrink. This gives them a chance to recover and, in many cases, begin producing thicker, healthier hair again. It's not stimulating new growth in the same way minoxidil is. It's playing defense, protecting the follicles you still have from the hormonal assault. This is why some dermatologists suggest using both minoxidil and finasteride together. A 1-2 punch of offense and defense. However, because finasteride works by altering your hormones, it is a prescription medication that requires a thorough discussion with a doctor. It's primarily prescribed for men. While it can be considered for postmenopausal women in some cases, it's not for women of childbearing potential due to risks of birth defects. And it's crucial to have an open conversation about potential side effects, which, while affecting a small percentage of users, can be serious and need to be weighed against the potential benefits. This isn't a supplement you just pick up at the store. It's a targeted medical intervention. Beyond topical lotions and daily pills, we enter the realm of more advanced in-office and at-home procedures. One of the most interesting is low-level laser therapy, or LLLT. This sounds like something out of science fiction, but it's an FDA-cleared technology for hair loss. It typically comes in the form of a cap, helmet, or comb that you wear for a set amount of time several days a week. These devices are lined with medical-grade lasers and LEDs that emit a specific wavelength of red light. The theory here is based on a concept called photobiomodulation. The light energy penetrates the scalp and is absorbed by the cells within the hair follicles. This is thought to stimulate the mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cells, ramping up their energy production. This cellular energy boost might help extend the growth phase of the hair cycle, improve cell metabolism, and reduce inflammation around the follicle. It's like using a targeted sun lamp to gently wake up and energize your scalp's cellular machinery. The evidence for LLLT is still developing and perhaps not as robust as for minoxidil or finasteride, but some studies have shown it can be effective, especially when used in combination with other treatments. It represents a non-chemical, non-invasive approach that many people find appealing. Finally, there's a treatment that harnesses your body's own incredible healing mechanisms: platelet-rich plasma therapy, or PRP. This is a procedure that has to be done in a clinical setting by a medical professional. It starts with a simple blood draw, just like a routine lab test. That blood is then placed into a centrifuge, a machine that spins at incredibly high speeds to separate the blood into its different components. The goal is to isolate and concentrate the platelets. Platelets are the emergency first responders of your body. When you get a cut, they rush to the scene to stop the bleeding and initiate the healing process. They do this by releasing a host of powerful growth factors. In PRP therapy for hair loss, a doctor takes this concentrated, platelet-rich liquid gold and strategically injects it back into the areas of your scalp where the hair is thinning. The logic is that this massive, localized dose of growth factors will act as an alarm clock for dormant or miniaturizing hair follicles, stimulating them to repair themselves and shift back into an active growth phase. It's one of the most direct ways to try and rejuvenate follicles using the powerful biological toolkit you were born with. It typically requires a series of treatments and can be more costly, but for the right candidate, the case studies show it can be a highly effective option. So we have minoxidil, the growth phase extender; finasteride, the hormonal bodyguard; low-level laser therapy, the cellular energizer; and PRP, the concentrated healing signal. These are the heavyweights, the options backed by clinical data and prescribed by specialists. They represent the frontier of what medicine can currently offer for hair loss. But looking at these powerful, complex treatments, it begs an even bigger question. With all these tools available, what then is the real role of something as simple as biotin? Is there any situation where it truly shines? Or has it been completely overshadowed by real medical science? To finally put biotin in its proper place, we need to synthesize everything we've learned and build a complete, logical framework for thinking about hair health. This framework rests on 3 core pillars, and understanding them will change the way you look at every hair supplement on the shelf. Let's call them the deficiency pillar, the support pillar, and the marketing pillar. First, the deficiency pillar. This is the bedrock of biotin's reputation. It is the one area where the science is absolutely unequivocally clear. Your body requires biotin to produce keratin, the very protein that makes up your hair. Think of it like a car factory. To build a car, you need steel, glass, and rubber. Keratin is the car, and biotin is a critical component of the assembly line that puts the steel chassis together. If the factory runs out of steel, production grinds to a halt. No steel, no car. Similarly, if your body is truly deficient in biotin, your keratin production line breaks down. The result isn't just slow hair growth, it's a systemic failure. You see symptoms like significant hair thinning or loss, a scaly red rash, and brittle nails. In this specific, medically diagnosed scenario, taking a biotin supplement is not just helpful, it's the direct, necessary solution. You are giving the factory the raw material it was missing. Production restarts, and as a result, hair health can be restored. But here is the crucial point that gets lost in the noise. True biotin deficiency in the United States is incredibly rare. A balanced diet provides more than enough for most people. So, for the vast majority of the population, the factory already has a mountain of steel. The deficiency pillar only applies to a tiny fraction of people, and it's a condition that should be diagnosed by a doctor, not by a quiz on a supplement website. This brings us to the second and far more common pillar, the support pillar. This is where most of us live. We aren't deficient, but we're looking for an edge. We want thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair. So, does adding more biotin to a system that's already sufficient do anything? This is where the car factory analogy becomes even more useful. If your factory has plenty of steel, will dumping another truckload of steel at the front gate make the assembly line move faster? No. The speed of the assembly line is determined by hundreds of other factors: the number of workers, the efficiency of the robots, the supply of rubber for tires, the availability of glass for windshields. Your hair is the same. Biotin is just one single nutrient in a hugely complex process. Hair health is an intricate dance between genetics, hormones, and a wide array of nutrients. You need adequate protein to provide the amino acid building blocks for keratin. You need iron because iron deficiency or anemia is a major, well-documented cause of hair shedding. You need zinc, which plays a vital role in hair tissue growth and repair. You need vitamin D, which can help create new follicles. You also need to manage stress, because high cortisol levels can prematurely push hair follicles into the shedding phase. So, where does biotin fit in? It's a supporting actor. It's one member of a large, talented cast. Taking extra biotin without ensuring all those other factors are in place is like polishing the chrome on a car that has no engine. It might look a little shinier, but it's not going to get you anywhere. For some individuals who might have suboptimal, but not deficient, levels, a modest supplement could potentially offer some benefit, acting as a nutritional insurance policy. But it will never be the primary driver of dramatic change. It supports the system. It does not supercharge it. And that leads us directly to our third and final pillar, the marketing pillar. This is where the kernel of scientific truth, that a deficiency causes hair loss, is taken, amplified, and blasted through a megaphone of commercial interest. The marketing world excels at creating simple solutions for complex problems. Losing hair? You just need more biotin. It's a beautifully simple and profitable narrative. This pillar is built on turning a sometimes solution for a rare problem into an always solution for a common desire. This is why you see biotin infused in shampoos, conditioners, and serums. Let's be very clear about this. The biotin molecule is too large to be effectively absorbed through the scalp to reach the hair follicle, which is located deep within the dermis. The follicle is where hair growth actually happens. Any plumping or thickening effect you feel from a biotin shampoo is almost certainly due to other ingredients, polymers and proteins that coat the hair shaft, temporarily increasing its diameter. It's a cosmetic effect like putting on makeup. It washes out, and it does nothing to influence the biological process of hair growth happening beneath the surface. The marketing pillar also thrives on massive, almost pharmacological dosages. You'll see supplements with 5,000 or 10,000 micrograms of biotin. Remember, the adequate daily intake for an adult is just 30 micrograms. Your body is excellent at regulating biotin levels. If you take in a massive amount, you'll simply excrete what you don't need. While biotin is a water-soluble vitamin and generally considered safe even at high doses, there is one significant, and often overlooked, risk. Extremely high levels of biotin in your bloodstream can interfere with critical medical lab tests, particularly those for heart and hormone function. It can lead to falsely low or falsely high results, potentially causing a misdiagnosis of a serious condition. This is not a small detail. It's a public safety warning issued by the FDA. So now that we have our complete framework, how do we use it? How do we finally put biotin in its proper place? Comes down to a simple, logical, three-step action plan. Step 1, build your foundation. Before you even think about a biotin pill, look at your plate. Is your diet rich in protein from sources like lean meats, fish, eggs, and legumes? Are you eating a variety of fruits and vegetables to get a broad spectrum of vitamins and minerals? Foods like eggs, salmon, nuts, and seeds are not only great sources of biotin, but also packed with other hair-healthy nutrients like protein, zinc, and omega-3 fatty acids. Focus on the big picture of holistic health. Manage your stress, prioritize sleep, and stay hydrated. This is the 90% of the work. This is what truly moves the needle. Step 2. Investigate, don't speculate. If you are experiencing sudden, significant hair loss, brittle nails, and other concerning symptoms, your first stop should not be the supplement aisle. It should be your doctor's office. They can run blood tests to check for actual deficiencies, not just in biotin but in iron, vitamin D, and thyroid function, all of which are far more common culprits of hair issues. A proper diagnosis is the only way to know if you're dealing with the problem that biotin can actually solve. Don't self-diagnose and waste money, or worse, mask a more serious underlying issue. Step 3. Supplement with purpose, not hope. If a medical professional has confirmed you have a deficiency, then a biotin supplement is your targeted solution. Follow their dosage recommendation. For everyone else, if you've already optimized your diet and lifestyle and still want to try a supplement, manage your expectations. A standard multivitamin or a low-dose biotin supplement is more than enough to act as a nutritional safety net. Avoid the megadoses, as they offer little to no additional benefit and come with the potential risk of interfering with important lab work. And understand that any potential changes will be subtle and will take months to become apparent, as it takes that long for new, healthier hair to grow out. In the end, the story of biotin is a perfect case study in modern wellness. It's a story of a humble essential vitamin that was turned into a global superstar. But its stardom was built less on its actual performance and more on a brilliant marketing strategy. Biotin isn't a scam, but its role has been dramatically exaggerated. It is not a miracle cure for baldness or a secret key to unlocking mermaid-like hair. It is a vital cog in a massive, intricate machine. For that machine to run beautifully, all the parts need to be in place. Focusing on just one cog while ignoring the engine, the fuel, and the driver will never get you to your destination. The real secret to healthier hair isn't found in a single pill. It's found in the comprehensive, and sometimes boring work of building a healthier you.